Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 6. So we are about to feast our eyes, if you want to call it, this week with episode 4 of The Flash Season 6, and of course a decent amount has gone down in the Bloodwork or, Ramsey Rosso arc already. And they'll be moving, I guess, pretty fast from now on as they move up to the, finale, if you want to call it, for the arc in episode 8 of this season, with the next week, of course, being the first half of the epic and long-awaited Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event. But even though we will be moving pretty fast with this Bloodwork arc in the next couple of weeks and getting to the end of that, Crisis will be a big thing that is still brought up throughout all of that, and as Eric Wallace, the showrunner for The Flash, has said in the past in the lead up to this season of The Flash, it will all be connected. So in this video we are going to go over a couple of interviews from various cast members of The Flash that go over a variety of different topics that I'm sure most will be interested in, but the first we will go over connects to the Bloodwork arc and how that could potentially teach Barry a thing or two in regards to how he deals with Crisis and, possibly come out the other end alive and, well, maybe a bit emotionally scarred and just affected by that, but physically still alive. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know all of your various opinions in the comment section down below, and just different thoughts. Interested to see what you guys have to say, and of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, why not drop a like on it to show support. So both Grant Gustin, who plays Barry, and Senthil Ramamurthy, who play Ramsey, were doing an interview with TV Guide where they were just going over the whole hero-villain dynamic or relationship this season, and also how it differs from others in the past. But this is what Senthil had to say first up. He's the villain, but he comes from a good place. I think he's out to do villainous things or to hurt people or anything like that. I think his main motivation comes from self-preservation. What he thinks is a logical and kind of reasonable way to go about things kind of goes out the window once he's presented with this set of circumstances that his life is in danger. It becomes all about that. He's, from his point of view, putting everything else aside to get to where he needs to get to, but if you were looking at it from the outside, it is super messed up. I tried to forget about that and just kind of really focus on this is his need right now, and this is what he's willing to do to get it, and for him, there's nothing weird about it. There's nothing devious about it. There's nothing evil about it. It's just what he needs to survive. And yeah, we pretty much said that in our reviews in regards to that. Like, he's just a guy that, this is his only real option. Everything else is sort of fallen by the wayside in regards to how he deals with it. And this is the way and the only way, I guess, he has to deal with it, just because it's such an obscure way in which he, has to figure out things to survive. But this is what Grant briefly had to say. Grant's only got a bit of stuff in here, but this is what Grant briefly had to say on the matter. He, I think for Barry at least, appeals to his heart in a way that villains of the past kind of haven't. And then just the nature of who he is as a villain, what his powers are pretty different than any of the big bads we've had on the show before. It's more adult, I will say. In the way we handle it, it's a little scarier in a way. Now, I have seen people asking me whether I think Bloodwork is like the darkest, or at least most adult villain that the show has done. I haven't said adult, but different terms. And in regards to what he has done at the moment, I would say no, because it's been pretty brief, and we've only seen one example of it really with that Mitch Romero dude. But if he keeps building upon what we have seen and what's teased in the trailer for this week's episode, I think possibly yes, just killing people at will to get stronger, no matter who they are. There's no specific person, the person has to be a metahuman who has these powers, and then I kill them or I just take their powers. He just has to kill these people and they sort of get reanimated, which is pretty messed up. No other villain on Earth 1 at least, did this to such a big extent. Obviously, the whole Hunter Zolomon on Earth 2 thing, he's a big serial killer. But nothing we've seen in regards to, we get to see them doing these acts. So, yeah, I think he will be, this most, dark and adult villain that we've seen, which is pretty crazy, seeing we're only going to spend, 8 episodes with him, so, yeah. But Senthil had this to say on the dynamic between the hero and villain for the first half of the season, and he did give off a bit of a hint as to what Barry might learn of him heading into Crisis. The relationship between Barry and Ramsey for a huge portion of the arc is really close. It's kind of like a brotherly thing, like an older brother, younger brother type thing. And Barry is so kind-hearted and just so intrinsically good, that he kind of puts blinders on. Barry always sees the good in others because that's what he is, and he kind of sees everything through rose-colored glasses. In a way, it's kind of like his kryptonite a little bit, but it's also something that makes him so effective as the Flash and being a hero. But it's also a little bit of a weakness, and Ramsey, he figures that out and he exploits that. He exploits that and uses it to try and get what he wants. Now, we did get little hints of that in the first, oh, not the first episode, but last week's episode, when like Ramsey just willingly goes into Star Labs and it's just to take the dark matter and stuff like that. And I'm sure we'll see more of that as the season goes on, or at least the next couple of episodes. But I guess the big question is like, will Barry learn something from the way that, will Barry learn something from Ramsey heading into Crisis in regards to like exploiting something to make things go his way? That's what Ramsey's doing. Like, he's definitely exploiting Barry just to feed things in so he can go about his path, like Ramsey can go about his path in regards to surviving. But would Barry do something similar? I mean, the Monitor hasn't been, or necessarily, I guess, been the nicest dude to Barry, so maybe things open up for Barry to decide his own fate. Like, as I've said, Eric Wallace said the Bloodwork arc has a major role in Barry's actions to Crisis, so this could be that effect. In regards to what he does through Crisis, like, we know that he's meant to die, and like Barry's meant to, we've seen like the whole recreation, or like a semi-recreation of Barry's death in the comics, but it wouldn't surprise me if something happens before that. Barry might die, but something's planted in which he comes back, because I think that whole scene where Barry dies is probably going to take place in the Flash episode, because it's probably fitting. Then there's that massive break and it's a bit of a cliffhanger, and then something's going to happen where Barry comes back. Whether it could simply be that Oliver does something to bring Barry back, but Oliver's already done that. That's the whole point, that Oliver's going to die now because he made that deal with the Monitor. So you have to think that maybe Barry does something to sort of, I guess, secure his survival, or do some little thing there that brings him back. It'll be interesting to see what happens there, but as I've said, and I just mentioned that Eric Wallace said the Bloodwork arc has this major role in Barry's Crisis activities and what happens to him in Crisis. So you have to think he learned something from Bloodwork in regards to that, and maybe how to secure his survival. But obviously, Crisis on Infinite Earths is the bombshell for everyone. No one's really taking it lightly, going, oh, that's cool, let's move on. Like, as soon as someone's told about it, it sort of sticks with them. And of course, that's going to be the case with Team Flash. But this is what Hartley Soy, who plays Ralph Dibny, had to say on Ralph and the whole Crisis news and how it specifically affects him. It's a nuclear bomb going off for the team, and specifically for Ralph. That's something that is going to be very challenging for him to take in. It's pretty catastrophic news. Barry is like a brother to him. Barry is the reason that Ralph is no longer where he was when we met him in Season 4. He got on the straight and narrow because of Barry, so the idea of anything happening to him is catastrophic to Ralph. They have a real bond. Now, I think we're going to see this come to a head in episode 6, because I think like this week's episode is a big like sort of Cisco episode with Barry, like in regards to like a teammate sort of like hanging with Barry, and then I think episode 5 is just episode 5. Like, I don't think there's much like necessarily like what we saw with Killer Frost and Barry in episode 3, but episode 6 is definitely a Barry and Ralph episode. I think we're going to see a lot of this, you know what I mean, like come to a head, as I said before. So it'll be interesting to see like how Ralph goes about things, and maybe how he plans to deal with life if Barry does go. So that'll be interesting to see. Now, one of the major teasers at the end of last season leading into this season was the file for Sue Dearborn. Now, this was brought up again in episode 1, and according to Hartley Sawyer, the writers are seeding in little things throughout the first half, but this is what he specifically had to say on the matter. Viewers might think that they're throwaway things, but when we get to the back half of the season, whether it's episode 15 or episode 18, there are some things that are going to circle back around. Little nuggets that are going to be really crucial story points. The Sue aspect is one of those things, and in the next few episodes, we're going to build up to some more things that are going to bring us right to the forefront of Ralph pursuing the mystery and how big of a deal that's going to be. It's not just going to be about him pursuing Sue. It's going to tie into a lot of different things that people are not going to expect and not going to see coming. Now, this surprises me, because when the whole Sue Dearborn file thing came in, I was like, okay, that's cool. They're bringing in Ralph's love interest from the comics, who's an important part to the character. It's not just a throwaway love interest. Sue's a big part of Ralph in the comics, so I'm happy they're doing it on the show. It's pretty much like Iris and Barry on the show. You know, I'm interested to see like what else comes with this. Like, is there like some baggage to Sue, or like a mystery with a villain or something like that? I'm interested to see where they go about it, because they could just simply bring her in, but I think maybe adding some more layers to it is actually a good way to go. And finally, we of course had the new Harrison Wells introduced in last week's episode, that of course being Harrison Nash Wells. We didn't learn much from him apart from the fact he was after Eternium and doesn't really believe in magic and stuff like that. But this is what Eric Wallace had to say on the new Wells, and what to expect from him leading up to Crisis as well as after Crisis. Despite Nash's Indiana Jones-like aura, there's this completely unexpected side to him, which I will not spoil. That's just wonderful. He has a secret that will be slowly dripped out in graphic novel number 1, aka the stretch of episodes leading up to the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, but which will really mess with his mind literally, that's a spoiler right there, in graphic novel number 2, the back half of season 6. The nature of Nash's secret will lead him to an emotional place. It's a similar kind of story to one of the other Welleses, but it takes it in an opposite direction. Season 3, which foretold a future in which Savitar kills Iris, asked, how do we face death? And what's different from Season 3 is we do the opposite. So while longtime Flash fans may remark, wait a minute, that's kind of like the other Wells, I don't think it's going to end the same way. It's a very kind of emotional story and we're very excited. Now, as I said, we didn't really get to learn much about Harrison Nash Wells in episode 3. I don't know necessarily what episode they're really going to, push forward with this secret coming out and slowly dripping it out, leading into Crisis and stuff like that. But I'm excited to see what they do. Pretty much what Erica said in other interviews, I think, is that this is his second favorite Wells after the OG one from season 1, the Earbud Thorn one. So I'm interested to see what they do with him this season. Because really, for the most part, he's just been a side character without like a ridiculously deep story outside of maybe Harry in season 4. So I'm excited to see what they do and actually give Tom Cavanagh like a lot of depth that he can dive into. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like and show support. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on what we went over, and I guess what you're looking forward to most from the stuff we went over, just I guess your different theories if you want to post them down there. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.